There at the Driscoll, he put a key in my hand, and of course I was old enough to know what it was for.
It was the beginning, Brown says, of an affair that lasted for 21 years, and one she claims that produced a son, Stephen, in 1950.
He was a spitting image. Stephen was as much like his father, Lyndon, as two peas in a pod. Their feet, I think, was size 13. Their height, his build, he was exactly like his father.
Growing up, Stephen never knew the identity of his father, but Brown says she tried to get Johnson to acknowledge Stephen during their last meeting in 1969.
And he said it'd been too many years, too many heartaches, and it would hurt Lady Bird and the girls.
Brown eventually told her son who his father was. And in 1987, Stephen Brown filed a $10.5 million lawsuit against Lady Bird Johnson, claiming that he had been deprived of his birthright. Before the suit could be tried, Stephen Brown died of lymphatic cancer.
Stephen didn't know during most of his life, however, that LBJ was his alleged dad, did he?
No.
Why didn't you tell your son?
I was told. I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, I didn't repeat anything, and it would have been political suicide for Lyndon to have acknowledged us at that time.
Hey, why don't you just read the letter that Jerome Ragsdale, attorney and counsel of law, who was he, first of all?
He was the attorney. I don't have my glasses.
Oh, you don't have your glasses?
Anyway, he was Lyndon's attorney, and he was the liaison between Jess Kellum and
Dear
Lyndon.
Madeline, thank you so much for breaking your plans and meeting with Jess and me. Who's Jess?
That was his hatchet man, Jess Kellum.
Okay, Jess and me in Houston last week. I sincerely hope, it's dated incidentally May 18th, 1973. When did LBJ pass away?
He died in January of '73.
So this is several months after he passed away. Okay, I sincerely hope we did not inconvenience you in any way. Those of us who are close to Lyndon are saddened by his recent death. It is fortunate that he died at the ranch. He would have wanted it that way. It is unfortunate, however, that he died so bitter and tormented. As we discussed in Houston, you have my personal assurance that I will continue with the financial arrangements that Lyndon provided for you and Steve throughout the past. I know you are very concerned about this, and I simply wanted to relieve your mind. As always, if you need additional funds for you and Steve's living expenses, please do not hesitate to call me. Of course, I will continue to make weekly home visits to verify you and Steve's welfare. Sincerely yours, Jerome T. Ragsdale, attorney and counselor at law based in Dallas, Texas. What were the financial arrangements, Madeline? How much was it?
My home was paid for, and I had a maid, and I had credit cards, and I had whatever my needs were.
Did you, Madeline, have any encounters with LBJ either immediately before or immediately following the assassination of
yes,
John Kennedy?
The morning of the assassination, he was angry, but he was always angry when Ralph Yarborough and John Connally, there was a political feud going on.
Senator Yarborough of Texas, yes. Governor John Connally of Texas at the time.
And I had planned a meeting that night in Austin. We were going to the big fundraiser. And he said, well, after today, the blank Kennedys would never embarrass him again. That was no threat, that was a promise. And I kind of laughed it off. I said, oh, after the rendezvous, everything's going to be great. Well, Jess Kellum had called me also, and he was telling me...
The hatchet man?
Yeah, the hatchet man. And I said, oh, Jess, he'll be okay. He's just mad. You know, everything's going to be all right.
Why was he so mad at
the Kennedys were always putting him down and calling him the country bumpkin, and he just didn't like it. They were a stumbling block in his way politically.
When he said that to you, did you take it seriously?
Not at that second. I just thought he was mad.
Did you talk to him at all after the tragedy? After
yes.
Horrible
I met him in Austin on New Year's Eve. And I was real concerned about it because everyone in Dallas was talking about he was responsible for the assassination. So I said to him, Lyndon, I said, you had already told me that after that day, there, you know, the Kennedys wouldn't embarrass you again. And then Jack Ruby had come out openly and said that Lyndon Johnson was the cause of it. So I said, I've got to be... in my mind, I've got to put things to rest. And he had a temper fit. He blew up and just screamed and hollered, and then he calmed down, and he turned around And he said at that time it was the oil people I knew and the CIA.
Wait, are you saying that Lyndon Johnson, was he now President of the United States?
Yes.
Said to you personally?
Yes.
You swear this?
Swear.
That the oil people and the CIA were involved in the murder of John Kennedy?
Yes.
LBJ said that to you?
Yes.
Was it just the two of you alone?
Yes.
You sure it's not that the passage of years have made your memory foggy?
No.
You're not embellishing this tale, man?
No.
You sit here today and you claim that LBJ said the oil people and the CIA...
Scout's honor.
...killed the president.
Right.
What'd you say?
Well, I was, of course, deeply upset, and I thought, well, I'll never see him again. I can't handle this. But because of Stephen and because of some of the other things, when Jess had called me to come to Austin, I always went.
When was the last time you saw President Johnson?
I saw him in Houston, Texas. I had been in a real bad car wreck, and I had undergone lots of plastic surgery, and I thought that perhaps maybe I had healed well enough to see him, and just called and he said he wanted to see me. And the astronauts that had landed on the moon, they were having a big party there in Houston, and we had all been invited. So when Jess told me to come to Houston, I thought, well, I was well enough that I could go. And I met him at the Shamrock Hotel in Houston.
The year?
August of '69.
Do you believe that your former paramour, Lyndon Johnson, had anything at all to do with the death of John Kennedy?
No, I did not have anything.
Do you believe that he had anything to do with it?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
As you sit there today, you do?
Yes.
Did you know what he was talking about?
I knew the people that he named, yes, I certainly did. H.L. Hunt was a very dear friend of mine, and 3 days prior to the assassination, H.L. Hunt gave me one of the wanted for treason pamphlets, and they just bombarded Dallas with it. And
Wanted for treason, JFK.
Uh-huh.
They thought that the liberal president was a treasonous man.
Right.
Selling the country down the river.
So I said, H.L., you cannot do the President of the United States that way. And he said, well, hell, I can. I'm the richest man in the world. I can do whatever I want to. But Dallas, Texas was bombarded, and he passed them out personally.
Number one, what I do in my book is I perform a criminal investigation of Lyndon Johnson. And while the Warren Commission performed a criminal investigation of Lee Harvey Oswald and determined him to be a murderer without a motive, if you take all of these other possible parties who could have killed the president and combined all their motives together, they wouldn't have as many as Lyndon Johnson himself. He had personal motives, he had economic motives, he had political motives. We start with motive. Then from there we go to opportunity. Lyndon Johnson was involved in planning the trip. After we go to opportunity and you look at the Texas connection, which is what my book is about, everything that was involved in this assassination, pre and post, Lyndon Johnson was involved in. We can go to Jack Ruby. Ask Madeline Brown how she met Jack Ruby.
Did you meet Jack Ruby, Madeline?
Lyndon Johnson's attorney introduced me to him.
Go on.
I'm serious.
Where?
I was coming out of Neiman Marcus, and happened, of course, I knew the attorney, and he was standing talking to Jack Ruby, and he says, I want you to meet Jack Ruby. And so I still...
Wait a second. When was this?
Oh, 1952, I think. Way back.
10 years before the assassination?
Oh, yeah.
So Lyndon Johnson's attorney, which one?
Jerome Ragsdale.
The same guy who wrote you the letter after LBJ died and said that the financial arrangements would be continued. He was standing with Jack Ruby, you say?
Yes.
Did you ever tell any of the authorities this?
Yes.
Who'd you tell?
Well, I told, well, not the Warren Commission. They didn't talk to me.
They didn't ask you to testify?
No, I was told.
Go on.
I was told if they contacted me in any way...
They should watch some talk shows, these guys. What'd you say, James?
I said the Warren Commission didn't even talk to the closest witnesses to the assassination. Bill and Gail Newman, you know, they were right there. We all remember the pictures of them shielding their children on the grassy knoll. Warren Commission didn't even talk to them.
And there were over a dozen witnesses on the overpass, every one of which was aware that the shots came from the grassy knoll from behind the stockade fence. Only one was called, And when he said that the others saw the same things that he did, they didn't call any of the others.
Craig Zerbil, who picked the Warren Commission?
Let me just tell you this. What these two men are saying, who are experts in the assassination, is absolutely true. The Warren Commission was a politically biased entity created by Lyndon Johnson for the sole purpose of getting him out of another political scandal. This one, of course, the worst of his career. And the reason I say that, if you look back in history, 1963, November 22nd, what happened? The Texans came out and they said it was a lone killing.